Hi, this is Andrew Martin. I'm the Group Publisher at Azure Online and Data and Storage ASEAN. Pleased to be continuing my conversation with Scott Morris, talking about Druva and their SaaS-based backup application. So Scott, getting straight back into it, we noted that Druva has, within the solution, abilities to protect SaaS offerings like Salesforce and O365. So, question is, why do SaaS offerings need a third-party backup when there's a perception out there that they really have their own built-in data protection already?
So we have to, again, be very careful. The devil's in the detail. So when you shift from an on-prem infrastructure, you've got your own data center that you are managing yourself. So you are now shifting that production workload into a production workload that now sits in a cloud provider. Whether you have it on-prem production or in cloud production, the standard requirements of backup still holds true. Right? Do you have a standalone production environment that you don't back up? The answer is no. So moving your production email environment from on-prem to cloud doesn't take away the need for you to protect that infrastructure. And I think that's probably the biggest misunderstanding and misnomer. Yes, there are some basic features and capabilities that Microsoft 365 applications allow you from a recovery point of view, but they are not anywhere near the comprehensive capability that you get from an all-encompassing backup and recovery solution like Druva. And again, as you think about the overlaid microservices of governance, risk, and compliance become an increasingly additional component that you want to think about from a business point of view. We absolutely recommend that, there is a documented policy from Microsoft in their service agreement. I think I've got it written down here. Let me pick it up. It says, we recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on the services or store using third-party apps and services. So that's not Druva talking, that's Microsoft themselves. So whilst they give you a basic rudimentary capability, they're not giving you a comprehensive backup, restore, and recovery capability. And so, the 5 important risk areas that you face in Microsoft 365, and these are due to limitations in features and functions that many more organizations are not aware of. One, it's absolutely prone to user error, right? And again, so the need for having a consistent backup is absolutely critical. Ransomware prevention is not good enough. And as I mentioned earlier, the likelihood of being hit by ransomware today is just exponentially increasing. Number 3 is data retention gaps, risk non-compliance, right? So as you think about the time that you need to hold on to data from a legal perspective, right? Generally, you're not seeing that from an underlying component from M365. And last but not least, internal threats create significant data risk, and whether that's an internal malicious intent or a mistake that's made. So all of those things don't give you the underlying protection that you need to recover from those kind of elements. The right third-party backup solution for your data and other software as a service apps such as Salesforce, Google, all of these have the same underlying risks with a shared responsibility model by those vendors. And so Druva really creates an all-encompassing solution that's natively built in the cloud, is made available as a software as a service, so no hardware, no software, no manual patching required, and provides you that infinite scalability. Simply said, a SaaS solution product built to protect SaaS applications makes logical sense. And SaaS application is absolutely critical. It's difficult to build into legacy backup architectures. Right? When you're designed in the cloud, we understand cloud extremely well. When you're trying to take what was an on-prem infrastructure and apply that to cloud models, it becomes difficult. So you've got to think about application integration, data movement, data storage. Software as a service applications are only going to grow in importance. And so adopting an architecture that you can scale with you, i.e. Druva SaaS platform, really becomes a a no-brainer. With traditional methods, right, that are not built for the cloud, complexities and costs will go up. With Druva, leave the plumbing to us. You remain in control of your business critical data. We take care of the rest. Interestingly, you might have seen in the press, we've just announced a collaboration with Dell Technologies to deliver their new Dell EMC Power Protect Backup as a Service with SaaS and cloud protection capabilities. All of that is powered by Druva. So you've now got one of the largest traditional infrastructure players in the world aligning with Druva to provide to their customers, and they recognized there was a gap in their portfolio to go after this growing and very important SaaS application backup mode.
Yeah, really interesting point, Scott. And I think what you were talking about there really plays to what I believe we call shared responsibility, whereby when it comes to who is responsible for protecting and being able to recover your data, it is shared. It doesn't sit with the cloud provider. You as the owner of your data have a lot of responsibility for it, as you clearly demonstrated. And I think that was also shown last year or about a year ago when Salesforce actually stopped their data recovery service and told people that they need to take responsibility for protecting their Salesforce-based data. And as far as I know, you guys are one of the only ones that actually have a SaaS-based offering for Salesforce. So it's very, very interesting stuff. I think it's also really interesting that Druva as an enterprise backup player also has an endpoint backup offering, because I think that endpoints are something that often get overlooked. But do you think these days with COVID forcing everyone to be working remotely, that the time for corporate controlled endpoint backup has really arrived?
I think in a simple word, absolutely, definitely, must have. And this has really been even exacerbated or accelerated by an event like COVID. And everyone talks about the pandemic and never seen before, but it has fundamentally changed how we do business. So we've gone from consolidated and having network-based infrastructure, which still had a data center-centric approach to data and data protection. We've now seen that whole model thrown on its head, where everyone's now being forced to work from home. So now your laptop, your desktop, your mobile phone has more and more critical data sitting on it than it ever has before. And so, with the proliferation of remote work, the misuse of cloud syncing services, so the kind of the unauthorized, the Dropboxes and others that were being used for sharing of data, all of that becomes a critical risk. The expansion of e-discovery. So as you start to think about the legal ramifications, the governance ramifications, the rise in ransomware, when you've got all of this data dispersed out in the in user home offices, like we're sitting here today, right? I'm sitting in my small bedsit in Singapore, and the amount of data that sits on my laptop that I need to have access to becomes a critical risk to a company if it's not protected in the right way. So if you think about the top 5 real world pitfalls of having a more distributed risk of sitting with data in user devices or end user devices, it's underestimating the risk of employee departures. Right? So now that people aren't sitting in offices, being able to recover laptops, information is critical. I think miscalculating, we're seeing a huge challenge of companies that are miscalculating the impact of ransomware as it occurs, and I don't think I need to tell you about how much money is being spent or being forced to be spent to recover from ransomware. Undervaluing the security or compliance requirements. So again, how do you maintain, with higher and higher regulations and regulatory compliance requirements being enforced on a global basis, how do you mandate and make sure that that happens consistently? Not understanding the SLAs and the quality of cloud infrastructure that sits in place. And I think last of the 5 would be just thinking that a legacy service solution will just work and be able to protect you. And we're seeing day in, day out the number of customers that are being forced to shift away from those models to a more modern approach to data backup and recovery, and with that cloud software as a service approach from Druva. I think to ensure protection and business continuity, it's absolutely critical to deploy a modern endpoint backup solution. And this is why Druva's cloud-native solution is more relevant than ever to help any organization achieve these benefits remotely. Right? You get faster recovery from a device lost or theft. And that's the ability to remote wipe, to lock down devices, and whether that's a laptop, a desktop, or a mobile phone. Point two is improved ransomware response and recovery time, so the ability to rapidly recover and get back to a clean copy of information or data. Easily manage data migration and device refresh as you think about remote working. Accelerating legal hold and e-discovery. So this becomes a really critical piece now. So think about before, and we're seeing more and more litigation happening on a global basis. Before, you'd either have to surrender devices, lock down information, and hand that over to lawyers. It used to take weeks and weeks and months of work to align those. Not only to the disruption from a user point of view or a company point of view, our e-discovery and data governance modules and microservices allow us to simply, with a single point or a single button press, lock down components of information, send a secure link to a lawyer, and have that able to be maintained from a distance, and a fraction of the time that it was taking before. And last but not least, minimize the compliance risks and penalties. So again, our cyber resiliency and again governance modules allow us to have templates that allow us to apply either GDPR rules and responsibilities. We can look for, from a Singapore perspective, people's personal identification numbers that are being stored in places that they shouldn't. So as you start to think of the value of having data secured, backed up, and available to create data value, now start adding microservices over the top that allow you to now create real true value and protection becomes really critical. I think the beauty of Druva lies in that one SaaS platform approach. And as you talk about a platform, that means whether you have endpoints that need protecting, whether you have hybrid on-prem servers that need protecting, whether you have cloud-based SaaS applications that need protecting, and also AWS native workloads that you need protecting, all of that can be done on a single platform with a single pane of glass, giving you total protection and the ability to layer over those microservices to provide additional governance and additional cyber resiliency. I think Druva's services automatically scale to meet any customer need and at a price that's typically lower than our competitors, and that's due to our design that fully utilizes the elasticity of cloud. We offer some of the best RTO and RPOs in the industry. And again, if you don't believe us, put us to the test. Our service is designed from the cloud down. And it's really only one way to handle all of the data protection challenges of the past, whilst also preparing you for the data protection challenges that you're going to face in the future as you shift more and more workloads into the cloud.
Yeah, they're, again, really, really important points. And one thing that came to mind to me, Scott, as you were speaking, was this idea of a distributed workforce, and when you need to actually recover data or a whole laptop to a remote worker, it can actually be something that's a little bit difficult to do. And I, based on what you said, can see how Druva can actually really simplify that process as well. So I think there's a lot of reasons why, as you've mentioned, this becomes a really important part of your total backup strategy. Kind of coming to the end of our time, but I'm really interested to just ask you about the region as a whole. So when you look at the ASEAN region that we cover, what do you feel about kind of Druva's approach, and do you feel that you are especially well suited to solving backup and data protection solutions in the ASEAN market?
Look, again, I think digital transformation acceleration is being pushed by the pandemic and other factors. It's absolutely shot up the rate of cloud adoption in ASEAN. You're seeing all of the major public cloud providers, whether that be Amazon, Google, Azure, all expanding out or either opening up new storage regions across Southeast Asia. Clearly, the predominant storage region today sits in Singapore. But absolutely, as you think about that, IDC talks about the acceleration of digital transformation projects growing at a compound rate within ASEAN of around 41.2%, and that's the bulk of driving kind of the platform as a service spending in APAC. It's only going to increase, and I think there is a much broader adoption. You're seeing a highly compliance and regulatory organization or country like Singapore really starting to open up and see a much broader adoption of cloud-based technologies. Interestingly, Druva today we actually have customers in 20 countries across the whole of APJ. Right? So we are covering the majority of the infrastructure, and that covers all of the 10 ASEAN countries that sit there, and you're seeing this incremental growth that's coming to bear. Partners still play a very, very significant part of this growth, and as we think about how do we get reach to all of the broadest and furthest areas across ASEAN, whether it be cloud-centric providers and consulting partners for the likes of AWS, or traditional hardware software integrators that are moving and seeing that shift to both hybrid on-prem and cloud infrastructures, the partners that adopt and move first become a critical component to overall growth. And here at Druva, we're 100% partner-centric in terms of our approach to market. We are consistently looking at identifying and developing key partnerships in region, and see that as a critical success factor to continue our growth and the broader growth of cloud and SaaS-based portfolios in the region.
Yeah, I think your point in particular around the acceleration of digital transformation is really, really relevant. Obviously, we've seen that in this region, and I can now understand in a lot more detail why your approach to backup and data protection is really well suited to those companies that are accelerating their digital transformation journey, because the type of data they have needs to be protected in a different way, and I've got a much clearer understanding of how Druva is doing that. So Scott, I would like to thank you for joining us today. It's been a really fascinating session, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the interview today. If you want to find out more about Druva, check out their website or come to dataandstorageasean.com, where we actually have a lot of coverage about their solutions and what they're doing today. Thanks again.